Hello, I'm Chuck Wolf, Chief Executive for Charles J. Wolf Associates, LLC. As a motivational speaker and a leadership consultant, and executive coach and trainer, I often work with very successful people in their companies. Since many can't afford a professional, I volunteer to host a radio talk show called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel, on a nonprofit community radio station in Bridgeport, Connecticut, WPKN. My reason for doing the show is to share with as many people as possible this wonderful process for helping people manage their own emotions and their relationships with others. My goal is for everyone listening to learn to use the Emotion Roadmap to make life better. As you listen to me, help others, I hope you are also learning. As a Simsbury resident, I'm delighted to be able to make the show available through Simsbury TV. To learn more, go to my website, www.emotionroadmap.com. Thank you for listening and watching. And this is Chuck Wolf, and it's the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. Thank you to all the regular listeners who are tuning in. As you know, the show is on the first and second Wednesdays of each month from 12 to 1 p.m. And it is a pleasure to have you all back listening. For those of you that are new to this show, I'll explain a little bit about what the show is about and invite you to call in if you've got a question for me, and I'll explain how that works in a moment. But first, I just want to open the show by talking about something that is controversial. And I know if I say the word controversial that you might think I'm going to bring up a subject like the Kavanaugh hearings or the presidency or the race for governor in Connecticut. And those are all controversies too. But the one I want to talk about this morning is the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. And for those of you that don't know, that don't listen regularly, I'm a strong Boston fan. I grew up in the Boston area, and it's all Boston teams for me. And the Red Sox win last night was amazing in New York City. So I do want to talk about it, but not in the sense that I want to gloat and talk about the fact that the Red Sox beat the Yankees 2 games in a row in New York to win the series. But I want to talk more about the idea of the culture that this brand new young manager, Alex Cora, built for this team, and how culture makes an enormous difference in the way that you run an organization, and how productive and how profitable for profit companies that you can be when you build a culture based on trust, based on innovation, based on strategic and thoughtful risk-taking. And that's what Cora has done with the Red Sox. So I'd like to talk a bit about that today. If you are a fan of either team, I want to say that the Yankees team was amazing this year. I mean, Aaron Boone was a first-time manager too for the New York Yankees, and they ended up the season with 100 wins. I mean, that's an incredible first year. As good as the team was, you still have to pull it all together to get that many wins. Now some people, New York's funny. The newspapers were start shouting the boos is what one of the papers had for a headline when New York lost the first game in New York City at Yankee Stadium the other day. And so I'm sure that there'll be a lot of criticism of the manager, but I got to say they had a great year. They were a great team, and for the Red Sox to win was amazing. And I think it's a tribute not only to their manager, but to the owners and to the general manager in terms of some of the people that they brought into the team. Because another big reason why certain organizations succeed is because they understand what the organization needs that they don't have. And they either develop internally people who can do the job, or they go outside and recruit the right people. And I have to say that some of the people that were traded for or brought in as free agents really made a huge difference. And I give their general manager Dave Dombrowski some real credit for that as well. So there's a lot of things that happen in organizations that make you successful, and so I do want to talk about what it takes to create successful culture and organizations that are highly productive, very empowering in terms of how people feel who work for them, and how you build a team atmosphere where people really do care about each other and not just about individual statistics. Because if you understand how sports work, and not just in baseball, but in any sport, a lot of times the way you get paid is based on your individual performance, not necessarily on how the team performs. Now, that's true about other organizations in some cases as well. But in other kinds of organizations, your bonus, at least, is often dependent on how your overall team does. So in this case, I've got to say that I was very impressed with the year that as a Red Sox fan, watching the new manager, Alex Cora, who used to be a player for the Red Sox for a while. He played for the Dodgers and some other teams as well. And he was the assistant coach to the Houston Astros, which was the team that won the World Series last year. And now the Red Sox face the Houston Astros beginning on Saturday night in Fenway Park. So, as you can hear, I'm excited about talking a bit about the Red Sox, but I don't want to talk about it again to gloat, because I think the Yankees had a wonderful team, and I feel very lucky and privileged that we beat them. I don't think in any way that they should be embarrassed for the year they had. They had a wonderful year. Now, having said that, though, I do want to talk about what the show's about, because, again, I know that we have people who often just happen to tune in. Sometimes by accident, they don't even know WPKN, but more often, it's people that listen to WPKN for many years who are enormously loyal fans of the station, but they don't always happen to turn in around 12 noon on Wednesdays when I'm on the air on the first and second Wednesdays. And so I want to talk a little bit about what the show's about. So the show's called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. So think about that for a minute. Take the wheel and control how you feel. In other words, be responsible, be accountable for your feelings. Don't let your feelings just drive you as if you have no controls. It makes me think of self-driving cars. Really take over. Decide where you're going and how you're going to get there, and what risk you're willing to take, and what challenges you're willing to go up against, and determine what's best for you and for the people that you care about. Or even if you don't care about certain people, sometimes you have to work with them, and you have to understand how to work with them constructively, even when you don't like them, and maybe not even respect them. But you still sometimes have to work with them. Just like in nation states, sometimes you have to work with a nation that you know you can't trust, but you still have to work with them. So how do you do those things? And I want to talk a little bit about those ideas. But the show itself is about controlling and handling effectively your own emotions, and also being able to influence outcomes with other people in terms of your relationships. How do you want other people to feel? I don't know that most people ever even ask how they want somebody else to feel. They often will ask what they want somebody else to do, or at least think about that. But they don't necessarily are clued into the idea that when we want someone to do something, one of the ways we get people to do things is by influencing how they feel. Now, there's a whole science called emotional intelligence, and I'm privileged to have worked with the pioneers in the field. I'm considered the pioneer myself in this field. And I know that the science has informed me, and hopefully all of you listeners and anyone else that's paying attention in the field of emotional intelligence, to what we're learning that helps us to understand more about what our emotions tell us about ourselves. Emotions don't happen randomly. Moods do, which is different. It's kind of curious. But emotions, when we experience an emotional feeling at any point in time, it's often because something creates that feeling inside of us. So let's say, for instance, that we walk down the street and we realize that where we're headed is dark. The street lights are out. And we're in a neighborhood that's unfamiliar to us. And so we get more wary, a little more attentive, maybe a bit nervous, because we're walking in an area unfamiliar, unlit, and potentially unsafe. And so our emotions are then a system of information that inform us to pay attention to our surroundings in ways we might not have a moment before. Emotions also indicate if we've experienced what we believe to be, for instance, a sense of injustice. Something happens that seems extremely unfair. Again, it might have been some of the things that you might have seen if you're again a fan of the baseball playoffs, and I know there's a lot of Red Sox fans and Yankee fans that are kind of right on the border here in Bridgeport. I think we might have more Yankee fans, but also we have a lot of Red Sox fans down this way as well. And so sometimes the way we interpret whether a ball that was pitched over the plate was a strike or not isn't really where the ball goes as much as what our favorite team's position would be on it. So if I'm a Red Sox fan and I see the ball sort of touch the corner of the strike zone and it's a Yankee batter at the plate, I'm calling it a strike. But if it's a Yankee pitcher and the Red Sox player is at bat, I'm thinking it's a ball when it's borderline. I mean, that's just what happens, right? So we have filters that influence how we feel. I think everybody sort of knows that, but we don't often realize it in the moment it's happening. So I want to talk to you about how to control your feelings more. The idea of controlling our feelings is that our feelings, yes, they do inform us, but they're also filtered by our experiences and our biases. And so while we have emotional systems that inform us about certain things, one person's experience might be very different than another's. And so how do we know what truth is? Well, we try to work with facts as best we can. We try to understand what our own biases are as best we can. And then we try to determine, okay, with all this information, what actually is going on? And is what I'm feeling helpful? And that's really an important question, because sometimes, even though our feelings are informative and are designed to help us, at times they become complicated and obstruct us from doing things that we need to get done. So let's take, for instance, when you've lost a loved one and somebody is grieving, and it's appropriate to grieve. It's appropriate to be sad to a point. What if the sadness seems like it's going on too long? Now, what's too long? Well, it's different for different people. It's different, I think, if, for instance, you lose an aged parent who had a wonderful life, you had a good relationship, it was sort of their time, and they died a natural death. And, of course you're sad that they're gone, but you might experience it as it was, you might accept it easier than, for instance, the horrible situation where a young child or an adolescent might be killed in a car crash and their life is cut off, and you might grieve that person far longer because it seems so wrong to you. Either way, though, at some point you've got to find a way to move on with your life. So what if your sadness and your grieving don't stop? They keep going, even with the parent that died a natural death and lived a wonderful life. So how do you get more control over your feelings when your feelings become obstacles in terms of your living your life fully? How do you do that? How do you get more control over your life? How do you get more control over your feelings? So the show is about taking the wheel and controlling how you feel. And the unfortunate thing for all of us, really, even those who have some education, is that we don't often get very much help with how to manage our emotions or how to influence the emotions of others. We don't even think about it very much. We just kind of figure, hey, this is what I'm feeling, I just got to deal with it. Or that's what that person's feeling, but I got to push past it because that feeling is in the way of what we need to do together, and I got to figure out some way to work around it, as opposed to influence it and to get that feeling to change. What if we can change feelings? That's the excitement for me. The show's exciting in this sense that I help people to change how they're feeling. And one of the things that I've discovered over the years, I've been working in this field for about 20 years now, is that you can actually think about the feelings you have. Ask yourself if the feelings are helpful for what you're trying to get done. And if by chance they're not, you can change your feelings. Now, what would you change your feelings to if the feelings you have aren't helpful? Well, it depends on what you're trying to get done. It's not just always to change from feeling sad to happy. At some point, you might be almost too happy. For instance, after watching last night's baseball game and feeling extremely joyous, and if you don't listen or like sports, you have to forgive me a little bit here because I have to talk about this because I'm very excited about it. So last night, the Yankees and Red Sox are playing. It's the best 3 out of 5. So as soon as somebody wins 3 games, the series is over. And the Red Sox won the first game, but they almost didn't. The Yankees came back and they ended up winning just by 1 run. The second game, the Yankees beat up on them pretty well in Fenway Park, and unfortunately, that was the game I went to. Thanks. Sorry, what do you need? There's one on there. Pass it over, please. Oh, okay. Here you go. All right. I'm sorry. I'm assigned to something. So we're all set. But anyway, the question I have for you is, when you see somebody that is experiencing some feelings that aren't working, do you ever think about changing them? You probably don't. And in the case that I was experiencing the Yankees beating the Red Sox in Fenway Park, I came back in and I thought, how do you possibly get the Red Sox to feel better about themselves and to perform better going into Yankee Stadium, where the crowds are great for the Yankees. I mean, they're incredibly loud. People are up on their feet. They're screaming all the time, cheering for the Yankees. Any little sign of hope, they're up on their feet and cheering for their team. It's a very difficult place to win at. And the Yankees, I don't think, had lost any postseason games in a few years there. And they play a lot in the postseason, so it was a tough environment going into. But yet Alex Cora was able to change around some of the things that he was doing. He changed his lineup. He inserted a few different people in the lineup. He decided on the pitcher that was going to pitch the fourth game, was going to pitch the third game, because he had a great record against the Yankees. Not so much against other teams, but against the Yankees for some reason. Nathan Eovaldi had a great performance a couple of times when they faced him during the year. And so Cora made some great decisions. And he talked with everybody about it, so nobody felt disempowered that was taken out of the lineup, I don't believe, and explained why he was putting people in to give them a shot in the arm. And he somehow changed the feelings going into it so that they felt like they could still win. And they were amazing in that game. They won 16-1. I mean, that's crazy against the Yankees. I think it was the largest spread between number of runs ever for the Yankees to lose in postseason, and the most that the Red Sox ever won by. So that was an amazing game. But the last game, you knew it was going to be a very tough thing to do. And so how did they continue to keep the feelings the way they wanted to? And it's kind of a longer story, but I do want to just tell you about the show. And so I won't go into all of that, except to say that, of course, that they did find a way to win, but not without a struggle at the end. Anyway, the show's about helping you to change your feelings when your feelings aren't helpful. I worked with the pioneers of emotional intelligence for a number of years. The two that I worked closely with, that were the actual creators, if you will, of emotional intelligence science, were Peter Salovey, who's now the president of Yale University. I had a chance to work closely with Peter, and I've continued to stay in touch with Peter. He's a wonderful person, and highly emotionally intelligent guy himself, by the way, and a really good leader, I believe, of Yale University. And then Jack Mayer, who is a professor of psychology, a really, really creative thinker and a brilliant psychologist who teaches psychology at the University of New Hampshire. So these two people created in sort of the 1980s this idea that, hey, maybe there's something that's different than analytic intelligence, or IQ. Maybe there's something that's kind of unique in the intelligence world about emotions. Maybe there's something that we have in some ways similar to analytic intelligence. For instance, people in analytic intelligence are usually thought of in terms of like language skills, mathematical skills, spatial abilities. Those are the kind of things that we think about in analytic intelligence. And in emotional abilities, they said, well, what is it? And they began to work together, and they discovered that it falls into 4 general branches of abilities. One branch is the idea of identifying emotions. How effective are you in looking at another person and knowing with some degree of accuracy what he or she is feeling? And how effective are you and how accurate are you in knowing your own feelings? That's a little more tricky to know, perhaps. But the question is, are you any good at that? Are you any good at identifying feelings in yourself or in others? To what degree are you good? And that's the interesting thing about ability. In other words, some of you might be great at that. Some of you could be listening to my voice and knowing exactly how I feel right now. And others of you think you know how I feel and are wrong. And others listening have no clue about how I feel. How would you know how I feel? You can hear my voice, but why does that tell you anything about how I feel? And you might not know at all. So that's the ability. I know some of you know that my tape is, my show is videotaped, and so that people, you can watch me on YouTube. If you go to Simsbury Community TV on YouTube, and then you type in Emotion Roadmap, you'll see a bunch of my shows that come up, because I videotape it, and it's played in my hometown. The people that run the station asked me if I would do a radio show, and we agreed that I would film. I'm filming this show right now as we speak. And for those of you who get to see this later, when the show airs in Simsbury, and anybody that might watch it another time, I'm wearing my Jimmy Fund Red Sox cap in honor of the celebration last night of winning the series for the American League Division Series against the Yankees. So anyway, this idea of these pioneers discovered the idea that you could identify emotions in others. And the second thing they identified was that certain emotions are better than other emotions for a particular task. So how did Alex Cora want the Red Sox to feel after a very, very tough loss in Fenway Park, where they lost home field advantage going into Yankee Stadium? How did he want them to feel? He wanted, what do you think? I mean, he wanted them to feel competitive. He wanted them to feel like winners, even though they had lost that last game. He wanted them to feel powerful and strong. And he wanted them to feel brave and unafraid. Now, I mean, that all makes sense, but how do you do that? How do you change those feelings of, you could see in the dugout afterwards, I stay up late and watch all the interviews after the games, and I saw after the game when the Red Sox lost, there was a sort of a sadness, a kind of a muted affect. People just, I mean, they talked a good talk. I mean, they said all the right things, but you could see that they were almost depressed even after that loss. How do you turn that around so that they walk into Yankee Stadium and feel engaged, empowered? And how do you know if you were successful or not? Well, after losing the game at Fenway, the first game they played at Yankee Stadium, again, that's the one they won 16-1. So I guess he was successful turning around their feelings, right? So, but that's the idea, is the use of emotion. How do you want people to feel? Cora seems to be intuitively gifted with this. He seems to be able to create an atmosphere where everybody seems to care about each other. And while everybody wants to be in the lineup and everybody wants to be playing, they recognize that maybe they're not the best person to play in this game for whatever reason, and somebody else might be a better choice. And what they care about, what they seem to care about, what they say they care about is winning. Team winning, not individual statistics. And that's not an easy thing to do, and I think he's done it, which is terrific. But the idea of the show is about helping you understand that certain emotions are better for a particular task. And I'm trying to use this Red Sox game to explain that. Now, the second thing that happens is that, the third branch of abilities is understanding how emotions work. So what needed to happen to turn around how the players were feeling after a loss to get them at the point where they felt like they knew they were going to win this next game? How do you do that? How do emotions work? And how does it work for the individual members of your team? Because we're all somewhat unique. We have certain things in common. We all feel angry, but we don't all feel angry about the same things. We all feel happy, but we all don't feel happy about the same things. So understanding what emotions you want people to experience is like the first step in understanding emotions. Understanding what people are feeling and what they need to do to get to the new feelings is partly about understanding emotions. And finally, it's about understanding the uniqueness of each individual that's part of your team, that's a key person that's part of your team, how they are feeling, or he or she is feeling, and how to move that person to the new feelings. And then managing emotions is like having this plan and understanding how all this works, and then implementing and executing and modifying as you need to. So, as you consider what I just said, I tied it back to the Red Sox and so forth, but it's really about all of us, anytime, all the time. So, what are the things that people call into the show about? Well, they call in about, sometimes they're calling in about something at work, about someone that works on their team that they're concerned about. Maybe they feel like they're unstable. They seem unbalanced. Something's happened. You don't know what it is, but they don't seem the same as they were before, and it's troubling at a deep level, and you don't know what to do about it. Or they're just a difficult person to be around. There's that famous cartoon character, Debbie Downer. You might have somebody in your life that when you're around them, this person is always looking at what could go wrong and always bringing people down by saying things that just kind of suck the air out of the room. Sometimes you're with people that just care about hearing their own voice, and they only are waiting for you to catch a breath so they can talk. They're never listening to you, and that's hard to work with sometimes. So if you've got something going on at work that you'd like to call about, what I do is I ask you to give me as much information as you can, as quick as you can, and then I walk you through this idea of using the abilities that Mayer and Salovey discovered, Jack Mayer and Peter Salovey, and using it in my emotion roadmap that I created that basically looks at what are you feeling, and if the feeling isn't helpful, what would be ideal to feel for you and anybody else that's connected to what you're doing? That's key. So what are you feeling? What is ideal to feel? Understanding, which is how to get there. And then in the managing piece, for me, the managing emotions is, okay, so if I've got a plan that sounds like it's going to work, I have to ask myself two questions. So if I know I'm feeling, disempowered, disengaged, upset, like a loser, and I want to feel like a winner, and I want to feel competitive, and I want to feel empowered and engaged and so forth, how do I do that? How do I get from where I am, or my team to be where they are, to what I want them to be? How do I do that? And so that's understanding, as I mentioned, how emotions work, the science of emotion, but also how each individual might behave and what you might need to do that's unique to that person. And then finally, of the strategies that I come up with, what plan can I do? What am I really capable of? And what attitudinally am I willing to do? And that's a very different question too, because sometimes I'm capable, but I'm not willing. You know what I mean by that? I mean, sometimes people know, I know I could get this person to do what I want if I give up something or do something that's going to make them want to do what I need them to do. But I'm not willing to do that. You can kind of hear it in my voice, right? I'm not willing to do that because somehow, some way that's a problem for you. And I'm not saying that you're wrong or right about that. I'm just saying if you've got that attitude about a strategy that could work, but you're unwilling to do it, that's never going to be a plan that you can implement successfully. Same goes as if I'm willing to do almost anything for this, and here's a strategy that could work, but I don't have the time, the energy, the money, or the ability. I just don't know how to do that. So while I'd be willing to do it, I don't know how to do it, or I just can't do it because I don't have the resources, and so forth. So I think you need to be willing and able to implement the plan you come up with to change the feelings from what exists to the more ideal feelings for yourself and for the people that might be key to what you're trying to get done. So that's how it all works. Now, I'm going to ask you, if you want to call in and you've got something you'd like to talk to me about, the number to call is 203-336-9756. Now, what can you call about? Well, you can call about anything. I'm happy to help you with something personal that's going on in your life. Regular listeners know I do this all the time. And it's fun when I get people to interact with me. I know I've talked almost a half hour now because I came in pretty excited about what I saw last night. But I do want to allow people to call in because that's what the show's about. It's a community show, and I'd like to give some time to you to call in. Now, if you want to talk about the Yankees and the Red Sox, I'm delighted to talk about that as well. But if you got something you want to talk to me about that you're hoping to get some help with, the way the show works again is if you call in and you share with me something you're concerned about at work or at home. Well, what are some of the things people might talk about at home? Well, relationships with your partner, relationships with your parents, with in-laws, outlaws, sons, daughters, sons-in-laws, daughter-in-laws, grandchildren, whoever you might have a struggle with, and whatever it's about. What I've found over time is that when people can step back from their situations where they're stuck and look at the emotions that are in play that I help them to look at and think about what they'd want to feel instead of how they are feeling based on what's more ideal to feel for themselves and for others, I can help you plan for that. And as I'm helping you to do that, everybody's learning that's listening. So while I'm helping you, I'm hoping to help everybody else learn how to use this emotion roadmap that I created. I will share with you that with some of the work that I do with people like to take courses with me, so I do courses periodically. I just finished a webinar called Getting Smarter About People Skills. I do them twice a year. The next one's probably going to be in February if you're interested. But the other one is I do custom certifications of an assessment that measures your emotional abilities and also teaches you a lot over time about how to use the emotion roadmap. I work with you one-on-one. That's a little different than doing this over the radio and just listening. But I wanted to do it over the radio. I'm doing this 10 years now because not everybody can afford to pay to take a workshop, and you can learn this way. And you can learn by going to my website, the Emotion Roadmap, not emotional, but Emotion Roadmap, no spaces.com. Okay. Anyway, the number to call 203-336-9756. And while I'm waiting for you to call, I'll just tell you you're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM in Bridgeport, serving Fairfield, New Haven, and Litchfield counties in Connecticut and Suffolk County in New York, as well as communities around the world via podcast and streaming at WPKN.org. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who's calling, please?
Hi, this is Bill calling.
Hi, Bill. How you doing?
I'm well. I've listened to your show many times. I appreciate your advice and what you say.
Thank you so much.
You ready for it? I have something to ask you. Is that okay?
Sure. Go ahead.
So I've been a massage therapist for 25 years, and I'm good at what I do. But during the last 3 years, I've always been in really good shape, but I've had 3 hip surgeries and replacements.
Wow.
And it's been the same hip each time. So I've had to, over the years, try to become an advocate for myself, first of all, within the medical community. But second of all, the biggest issue is about how I have to, since you're talking about baseball, get up for the game and daily to try to deal with the emotional stressors that I go through to try to deal with this chronic pain that I deal with. I'm still in physical therapy right now, but every day is very difficult for me to get up for that moment and get active during the day and to do things based on the chronic pain that I'm in. So my question, I think, is how can I continue to find strength to get through this emotional type of situation I'm in? Because I'm running out of gas right now. I do a lot of reading, so I go to Zen kind of things to look for information and Buddhist kind of ideals, but I'm always looking for any kind of information that would help me to get through this kind and try to bring more positive energy to what I'm doing during the day so that I can still be productive.
Wow. Okay. So how long has it been going on for, Bill? A few years, you said?
It's been 3 straight years. Yeah, I've had my last surgery was in January, and I'm still not right. And I'm back in physical therapy right now to try to figure out what the problem is. Either way, I still work, and I still try to be positive in my life and stay mobile. I was in very great shape all of my life, so that helped me to get through these last 3 years, but I'm running out of gas right now because I can't be as active. I don't do a lot of physical kinds of things, and so I miss that part of life, which is where I used to get a lot of my emotional happiness from, was in playing sports or playing golf or just being more active, where now my brain is constantly on chronic pain and what that looks like and how to stay positive in those kinds of emotions. I know you've talked about, I'm a huge Yankee fan, so I'm not a happy camper today. But at the same time, I get that whole ideal about in sports how a coach has to change some things in order to make the team still be involved in wanting to be winners. And they're really successful in doing that. And I'm looking for any kind of other ideas of what I can do to try to stay positive in this madness that I'm in with this relationship I have with my third new hip.
Okay, so let me take a shot at just a few things. First of all,
Sure.
It's a change in your life that is not something that's easily acceptable. This is one of those things where you've lost the ability to do the things that you love, and there's a grieving that goes on with that, and that's appropriate. But at some point, you have to let go. Now, the problem is, in terms of letting go, is at least part of the problem, I believe, is you don't know yet if you might still get better. So it can't be like,
Correct.
okay, I'm accepting that this is the new state of my being right now, because that's a different place. Once you know that there is no returning from this, there's one strategy for that. But it's not the same as when you still think that there might be a chance that you're going to be healthy again at some point, and so it complicates it a bit.
Yes.
That makes sense?
Absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So in the meantime,
you need a transition strategy of some kind. While you're in this place, what can you do? And it sounds like you've made a lot of good moves on your part. I mean, it seems to me like some of the Eastern, ideas of trying to, be out of your body and, sort of isolate the pain and push it aside and recognize that it is pain and it is you, but somehow you can compartmentalize that and still go about your day. And that's sort of some of the Eastern methodologies, I think, that you've probably already tapped into a bit. So, does that sound right,
Correct. Correct. But you also spoke about, intuition today. I think I just got into the last bit about, instinctual kinds of things, and I have the ability, because I know the body so well from my business, that I'm able to be able to see my body in a medical kind of way and not just in a pain kind of a way.
Interesting. Are you still with me?
Emotionally
okay.
out.
Okay.
I'm tired, and I don't know how to get up for every day to keep fighting this.
And so, is one of the strategies that you've run across the idea of with your knowledge, kind of visualizing what's happening inside your body and envisioning what your body needs to do to fight back and to win this battle?
That daily, I do that throughout the day. So it is a nonstop kind of work that I'm doing, and maybe this is more about just being more acceptant of that this is pain and making pain my friend. I'm not sure.
Well, as I said, I suspect some of those ideas that you've already been exposed to probably allow you to sort of move in that direction a bit. But because you don't want to accept that pain is your friend and going to be with you forever, because you're still hoping to get better, it's sort of hard to make that work for you. I think that complicates it a bit for you. If at some point this is just the way it is, I think you might be at a different place with a different strategy.
Absolutely, and I'd be able to deal with that, and I've even said that to, the medical personnel that I have spoken to. I said, if this is the best I can get, if I'm going to get, then I can change and deal with that and that kind of way. But since I'm in this limbo place, it's very frustrating, and so frustration runs the show all day. I just don't let it stop me from being active, and I don't let it. I take it back. I try to minimize it as much as I can to not let people in my life have to participate in that with me. I don't complain around them. I try not to be snappy with them or short with them, and just be doing other things too, and their issues are not my issues. Separate their issues from my issues and treat them with that kind of compassion and respect that they deserve. But at the same time, I'm still trying to heal thyself. So that's where I'm at.
So let me give you some thoughts that are running through my mind here that might be helpful. It seems like you've been really smart about, I think, a lot of the ways that you're trying to, impact your feelings about this, but it feels like you're sort of running out of gas, and that the pain is more in control than you are in control of how you're dealing with it. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay.
Agreed.
So you want to find some way, and again, I think it might be different if we talk at another point, at which point you find out that, one, you're going to be better, then obviously you don't need a call. But if you find out you're not going to be better, that's a whole nother deal. And people do live with pain. I mean, obviously people have learned to accept that they have arthritis, that sometimes is crippling and very, very, very difficult for them, and they just find different ways to deal with it once they know it. Let me make a suggestion. So if you want to get control back, because you want to be able to control how this pain is impacting you, as opposed to have the pain be in control. And right now you're on the losing side of that. That's why you called, because you're feeling kind of exhausted by it. And my guess is that during the day, the pain just kind of takes over, and then you can't help but focus on it, and then it happens more and more that you just feel like it's just sucking the energy right out of me, and I'm finding it hard to get up and do the things that I like to do that aren't necessarily sports related, but just other things, whether it's reading or whatever. And so the question becomes, how do you feel like you feel like you're more in control of it? Now, do you have any things that you know that you've already tried that somehow at different points, maybe not as often anymore, but at different points you felt like you are in control of it and you are able to manage it? Do you have anything that you can look back on and say, there's a few things that do seem to work at times?
I mean, as far as pain management or as far as emotional kinds of things?
Both, actually.
So pain management is a thing that just comes and goes, and so it's a flip of the coin kind of a moment where something may work today and not work tomorrow. And as far as emotional things are concerned, I try to just look up some, if I'm on the go, I try to look up some kind of positive feedback ideal or saying to try to get me through it. So I guess I don't do it repetitively enough, so maybe that's why it's not working enough, because I'm not really pushing and pushing and pushing, because the chronic pain issue can get a little bit louder at times and disrupt that. Just like it is with meditation, meditation, is a kind of thing where at times you can get distracted from that and you need to come back to the breath. So within that, you're always coming back to the breath and coming back to a place. And maybe that's what I'm not doing enough of, to just keep coming back to that place of sunshine, if you want to call it that.
Well, it's interesting. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that there was a strategy for managing your emotions. It was called a psychological immune shower. It was the idea of, how sometimes it feels great to stand under a shower and just have all the rain pour? Well, the idea was to create a list of things that you really feel good about yourself. And when you were feeling sort of depressed or anxious or just life wasn't treating you the way you wanted, you'd pull out this list, and to the degree that you needed to see it, it's helpful to see it in writing, and maybe you write down 10, 12 things that you really like about yourself that other people like about you as well, and you just look at that list and you think about what you're grateful for, about the things that you feel good about, and it's a way of trying to. It's not like letting the pain just flow away. This is more like fighting back. And right. So that's a strategy where, how do I get to my happy place when I'm feeling this pain?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's a technique that might be helpful to you, but it is a strategy that some people find useful. But the other thing that I'd say that might be helpful is, because I think one of the things that would really work to your advantage is if you feel like you set aside some time during the day where you're going to deal with this issue of this recurring pain that I'm having, but you plan the times. And so when the pain starts to overwhelm you a bit, you know that, hey, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to spend 15 minutes thinking about this, experiencing the pain, feeling bad about it, and then move on. And then at 2:15, I'm going to do it again. But at 9:45, I'm going to remind myself, I don't have to deal with this right now because I'm dealing with it at 10:15. And the reason I'm saying something like that is because it feels like you get control back this way. Nothing's changed except what's in your head.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
Sure, it does. It does, because that once again will give me control power as opposed to just waiting for the pain to take control.
Exactly.
I choose the opportune time to come up with a strategy.
And, you know, you can sort of, like, when it pops into your head that, oh, crap, I'm feeling lousy again. And, you know, well, sure, I'm feeling lousy again, but I'm not dealing with that now because I'm dealing with that later. And then you get back to whatever it was that you were doing that you were enjoying before the pain started to overwhelm you again. And the pain gets pushed back.
Right.
So that's my best shot at helping you. I hope that's helpful.
It is. Can I ask you one more question, or am I taking up too much time?
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, one more really quick question. So I have 4 kids, and I have three daughters and 1 son. They are all at the adult age. My oldest daughter is 22, and her mother and I split up when she was around 12, and we don't have a relationship anymore. She won't tell anyone in the family on her mother's side why she doesn't want to have a relationship with me, but I've always reached out to her with unconditional love. She lives in Florida, but I text her often. I tell her that I care and that I'm thinking about her, even with the storm that's going on right now.
Right.
I texted her to make sure she was safe, and so I've just been a father who just shows unconditional love to my daughter, but at the same time, I don't have a relationship with her. She did end up texting me one time and says that she knows that the issues that are going on are things that she needs to work on and to give her space and time. And so I have given her space and time with that. But I'm just wondering, am I doing enough right now in reaching out? Should I actually call her and say something to her so that makes it more, since I'm more of the adult in this relationship? Or, I don't want to bother her and spook her from me, so I don't call her, but I text her often enough to let her know that I care. So that's my question with that. How do I deal with my daughter not talking to me, and any suggestions on where I could go from here?
Sure. Actually, I do. A couple things. One is, I have 3 daughters myself. They're all adults. And one of the things that I recognized many years ago was that at one point, one of my daughters, my youngest daughter, and I had, she was very young at the time, but I had gotten very busy with things, and I hadn't spent a lot of time with her. And she was... She had a way of just letting me know that she, didn't expect me to be around. So when I was around, she wasn't interested in engaging with me. And I realized that at that point that I was having, a relationship issue with my daughter. And at first I was defensive about it. And then I realized, hey, it isn't about her. It's about me. And so one of the things that I had learned in my life is that if I care enough about a relationship with somebody and I want to make sure that I don't fail at that relationship, then I take 100% responsibility. And what I mean by that is that, most of the time in relationships, you see everybody being 50-50 in order for a relationship to work. Or the more enlightened people say 100-100. Everybody's taking full responsibility for it. But 100-0. 100-0 is a different strategy. 100-0 says she doesn't need to do anything to make this work. I'm unwilling to allow this to fail. I'm going to make sure it never fails. I'm going to keep involved with her. I'm going to keep finding ways. If I screw up, I screw up. I'm going to figure out what I did to screw up, not do that again, and find a different way to approach it, because I refuse to allow this to fail. And so I think taking 100% and assuming no responsibility on her part is one way of thinking about this that I think is helpful for me anyway, hopefully for you as well. The other thing that I'd say to you is I'd call her, but I wouldn't call her and talk to her about the things that are problematic. I'd call her and talk.
I would never do that.
Yeah. So I'd call her and just talk about, geez, I know the storm's coming. Do you have friends that are impacted? Is there anything that I can do or you need from me? And how is your day going? And how is work? And, and just, and then if she doesn't have a lot to say, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to call you periodically. I just want to stay in touch because I love you so much.
I do see her from time to time, you know. So, and when I do see her, I treat her as if I saw her yesterday. I don't press her in any kind of way, because I also worked with children too, you know, within my life, and so I know that wouldn't work either. So I just, ask her how her day's going, you know, how's work and all those kinds of things, and just leave it at that. So I guess so you're telling me that.
I'd say pick the phone. I'd say pick the phone up and call and just say, I'm just calling to check in on you. I just want to see how you're doing. And I tell her a little bit about yourself, so she's not grappling with what she has to say to you. Just simple things, you know, just whatever you might, you might want to talk about on a daily basis. Say, how's everything with you? If she says everything's fine, Dad, thanks, and she doesn't say anything else, say, okay, I just want to touch base, and then let the phone call end.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yep, I wouldn't be out of her life. I mean, if she tells you that, you know, Dad, I don't want you calling, okay, but then I want to be in touch with you. I'll just keep texting, and then I'll ask for permission the next time to give you a call. You know, I mean, I wouldn't ask for it right away, but if for some reason she pushes back and it's not working, then I'd say pay attention to how she's feeling.
Yep.
You know, but once every couple of weeks, I'd pick up the phone and call her.
Great. I appreciate the help today, man. It was really good.
You're
really good at what you do. Keep on.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for calling. Thanks for listening.
I'll keep listening.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye. So that's how the show works, everybody. It's the idea that so you got something going on, you want to give me a call, you got a couple more minutes if you like. I'm on for a few more minutes. Let's see, I'll give you the number one more time and I'll take one more call. And if not, then I'll just finish out what happened with the end of the game. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Okay, no callers. So now you've got the end of the game with me. Okay, so I'm listening to the Red Sox, and they're playing at Yankee Stadium, and they get up. They get to 4-1. The Red Sox are leading, and they're going into their bullpen. And the bullpen for the Red Sox has been good and bad at times. The Yankees bullpen, for the most part, was great most of the year. So that was a strength that the Yankees seemed to have that was better than the Red Sox. But in this case, they put in one of their pitchers that was really good that they often use in the 8th inning in the 6th inning. So that was early in the game. A fellow named Matt Barnes, and he pitched great. 6th inning is over. Yankees don't score any runs. 7th inning, they bring in somebody that was playing in the Japanese leagues last year. This year, he's a 31-year-old rookie in the major leagues. Ryan Brazier comes in. He had a tough first game. He was awful in the first game, actually, in the series. The second game, he pitched really well. In this game, he pitches great. Okay, so now the 7th inning is over. And who they're going to bring in for the 8th inning, because they already used the guy that they normally use in the 8th inning, Matt Barnes. And so they bring in their ace pitcher, Chris Sale. Chris has been somebody who is like one of the best pitchers in baseball, but he'd been hurt this year. He had some bursitis. But he's now pitching, and he wants to be in there. And he comes in for the 8th inning, and not a relief pitcher normally. Pitches lights out. So now it's still 4-1 going into the 9th inning. And they bring in their closer, the guy that they usually can count on, the guy that's been one of the best closers in baseball, a fellow named Craig Kimbrell. Craig gets in there. He pitches to Aaron Judge, who's one of the, just a lovely young man, a giant of a man, actually, and a great, great baseball player for the Yankees. And Aaron Judge, he walks him on 4 pitches. The inning continues, and he gets up. The next guy that's up is Gregorius, and he goes I think it's 1-2, 1 ball, 2 strikes, and then he gets a hit. Now it's 1st and 2nd, nobody out. The score is 4-1. Now the next person that gets up, he actually strikes out. It's Stanton. It's their home run hitter. It's the guy that they got that they wanted to be the hero for the Yankees, and he strikes out. I wouldn't want to be in his household when he went home at night, because that was why they hired him, and he didn't perform. Unfortunate for him. Great for us. So now he strikes out, and then I don't remember exactly the sequence, but there was another walk, and then somebody else got walked in. So now it's 4-2. So Kimbrell is not pitching like Kimbrell. And the next fellow that gets up hits the ball really hard to left field. Home run, the Yankees win the game. but it doesn't quite go. I mean, it's short of the wall. It doesn't go off the wall, and the left fielder can catch it, but the man on third tags and runs in. Now it's 4-3. The next guy up, a terrific rookie for the Yankees, had a great year, hits the ball a really slow grounder to third base. It looks like there's no play, no chance for a play. Eduardo Nunez comes running in, gets the ball in his glove, makes the transition. This is hard to do when it's a very slow roll and you only got a second to get the transition of the ball from the glove to your hand and a throw to first base. And the fellow at first base, Steve Pearce, who's I think just playing this game because the another fellow who usually plays first, Mitch Moreland, was hurt. And Pearce has been a great addition to the Red Sox team this year. He stretches as far as he can, like does a split, puts his glove out, and catches the ball in the air. And the runner hits the bag just about at the same time. And the first base umpire calls him out. But there's been a lot of reviews where the first base umpire's calls have been reversed. So while the people in my home are cheering and the Yankees are, holding their breath while the review is done, they show it on the screen. And clearly, really clearly, the ball is in the glove about a half second before the runner's foot touches the bag. No question. Guy's out. And in our household, we're screaming, Red Sox win the game. And so I leave you with that, folks, just to say that sports can be a wonderful metaphor for how we live our lives. And I wish all our Yankee listeners, that they don't hang their heads, that it was a great team. You almost came back. You almost won this game again. And you almost came back in that first game, so it could have gone the other way. But I got to say that the wild card for me was Alex Cora, and he did an amazing job as a manager for a first-year manager. So, have a great week, everybody. Get few weeks. I'll be back at the beginning of the next month. And thanks a lot for listening, everyone. You've been listening to WPKN, Chuck Wolf, the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. Bye-bye, everybody.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.